What real-life creepy story still freaks you out to this day? I was just starting to recover from COVID, the very first one, in summer 2020. It almost killed me. I woke up in the middle of the night and I swear I saw someone standing next to my bed. I thought it was just a trick of the light. I got up to look at the room from another angle, and he was still there. I saw him very clearly. He had short hair. He was turned away from me at about a three-quarter angle. He was wearing a plaid shirt tucked into jeans. Naturally, I screamed and yanked the pull cord on the ceiling fan. The moment the light came on, he disappeared. I don't know if it was a COVID hallucination or something else, but I have never seen anything that real that wasn't actually real. Later, I told a neurologist because I was worried I might have some kind of brain damage. He just stared at me for a long time and then changed the subject. I was living in a 200-year-old house back then, so maybe I really did see a ghost. Who knows? But it scared me to death. A middle-aged woman from North Carolina had been haunted her whole life by a vague image, as if, in childhood, she had seen her father's face in the cesspit on their farm. Her father had left the family when she was about 5, and her therapist suggested regression hypnosis to get to the bottom of it. Other memories surfaced too. For example, her walking into the kitchen and seeing her mother wiping up blood and yelling at her, "Go to bed." Her mother still lived on that same farm. And after certain details lined up, the sheriff obtained a warrant to dig up the area where that cesspit used to be. Yep, the woman's father was down there, in pieces, apparently cut up so he would fit through the opening. This happened before the internet existed, but the whole story unfolded in real time in the local newspaper. And right when the district attorney was deciding whether to press charges, the mother, who was already in her 70s, left for a remote rural area, taking a pistol with her. In the late 70s, we lived on a small ranch south of San Antonio. Our neighbor, a man named Frank, asked us to help him with a newly registered Brahmin bull he had just bought. We helped him unload the bull, according to the papers his name was Cornelius, into a separate pen so the cows could get used to the new member of the herd. The next day, Frank asked if we had seen or heard anything strange during the night. His new bull, Cornelius, was dead. We all went to the back part of his property, which bordered ours. Cornelius was lying on his side with no visible cause of death. No blood, just some superficial scratches on his neck and hind legs. None of us knew of anything that could exist in our area that would be capable of taking down a Brahmin bull. Later, I heard from my dad that Frank claimed he had seen a headless woman in that pasture. For the rest of the time we lived there, Frank never again set foot in that field after dark. And, for the record, nobody ever saw him drink. We never saw that woman, with a head or without, but Frank warned us about her every time. A guy used to come into our store pretty often. I was finishing high school at the time, and he was probably in his early 20s. We became friendly over a few months, chatting about movies and video games. One weekend, he invited me to hang out, but I had a bad feeling, so I said I couldn't, told him I was grounded for bad grades. Turns out, that same weekend, he killed someone. We were supposed to stay over at our friend's new house for New Year's. Around midnight, I suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to go home and play World of Warcraft. I even argued with my girlfriend about it, insisting we leave, and eventually I got my way. That same night, their house burned down, and our friends didn't make it out. After reading most of the answers, I realized many of the stories here are far more horrifying and tragic than mine. I genuinely feel sorry for anyone who had to go through such hell or witness it. I have one story that continues to tear my soul apart year after year, and it's the scariest real-life story that still creeps me out to this day. I miss Tony. Here's the story. The disappearance of Anthony Ward. 56-year-old Anthony Ward, whom friends and family called Tony, was last seen on surveillance cameras at about 9:30 p.m. on Friday, February 13, 2015, at a gas station in the village of Chipman, New Brunswick, Canada. Earlier that same day, around noon, he was seen in the hill area of Fredericton. Anthony didn't show up for work, and coworkers reported him missing when they came to his home and found neither him nor his car. Search efforts began immediately, and not long after, following a few tips from residents, police found his 2010 Toyota Camry parked by a church in Chipman, just a minute's drive from Armstrong's convenience store where he had last been caught on camera. Chipman is a tiny village of about 1,000 people, located roughly 80 kilometers, about an hour's drive, northeast of Anthony's home in Fredericton. Anthony's sister, Peggy, said that at first the family thought maybe he just wanted to escape the harsh Canadian winter. Anthony was an avid traveler. In 2015, he already had trips planned to Las Vegas, Madagascar, and China. But Peggy was convinced he would never have left without telling anyone. "You know, I could just say aliens took him," she said, "and it would make just as much sense as everything else that's happening right now. Everyone is just shocked, stunned, and very worried." Finding the car only added more mystery. Anthony had no ties whatsoever to that place. Peggy described his relationship with his brothers as unusually close and said Anthony always reached out to them if he was struggling. In April 2015, when the snow began to melt, police intensified their searches in the area where the car was found. Anthony's phone was left at home, so it couldn't be traced. The RCMP brought in search and rescue teams, dogs, and drones with cameras, focusing on the river running through Chipman. One local resident said the car had been sitting in that parking lot the entire time until the police found it. It's unclear whether investigators found any evidence at all. 2 months later, the owner of the convenience store where Anthony was last seen gave an interview to local media. Ann Armstrong said Anthony bought foot warmers and a coffee. He was wearing moccasins, the North Face winter coat, and light pants. When police found the car, the coffee was still in the cup holder, half full, frozen, and the foot warmers were gone. His family described Anthony as a kind, generous, and thoughtful man whom everyone loved: family, friends, coworkers. Besides traveling, he loved cooking and photography and was very skilled at both. The Canadian police officially closed the case on November 23, 2015, after searches produced no results. The case will remain closed unless new information appears. 5 years later, the investigation was still at a dead end. So, where is Anthony Ward? He left intentionally, encrypted his computer, left his phone at home, placed it in plain sight, taped 2 months' worth of rent money to the inside of the door, and left a note for his brothers and sisters. The note said, "Give this to these 3 friends. I was one of them." Apparently, Tony had only one living brother left. I don't remember exactly. Either way, he left everything behind. He had no survival skills whatsoever, not for living in the wild or in a bunker. The body was never found. I am 100% convinced he met someone in that church parking lot, outside all camera coverage, bought a coffee, sat back in his car. When they found it, the coffee was half finished. The cup was 3/4 full. He didn't have a backpack, nothing that suggested preparation. He just vanished. It looks like he voluntarily got into someone else's car. But who helped him disappear, and why? This happened to me about 10 years ago. My childhood best friend Steve suddenly passed away. Over time, we had drifted apart a bit, but shortly before this, we had started talking again, after many years of silence. Steve hated, and I'm not exaggerating, technology. He didn't have a computer or a mobile phone, just a TV with an antenna and a landline. That's it. When I was away on a business trip, I was told that he had died. He had never been married, and honestly, he had always been kind of a bastard, so he hadn't spoken to his family in about 10 years. Yesterday, I met with his brother and sister. His body had been found only a couple of weeks later, and that fact still bothers me. Soon after returning home, I went away again for training in Texas. So I'm sitting there in class, my phone is on vibrate. and suddenly it vibrates. "Steve is calling." I got goosebumps all over. I was in a lecture, so I didn't answer. Later I called back, but as expected, no one picked up. I'm retired now, but back then I worked for a company that dealt with satellite telecommunications. My job involved managing network equipment, so I understood how call routing works in SS7 networks and how numbers get reassigned. It's possible his number had already been recycled and someone accidentally dialed mine, or maybe they used the redial feature on an old rotary phone. But still, it was creepy. I don't believe in ghosts or spirits or anything supernatural, but that incident, with all its strangeness and coincidence, made me rethink some of my beliefs. About 25 years ago, I was in love with a girl. She looked almost like Avril Lavigne. Very sweet, kind to everyone. Unfortunately, nothing worked out between us. We never ended up dating. A few months later, she started seeing some loser. And this guy, high on something, stabbed her 25-30 times. She died. She was only 19 or 20 at the time. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if we had started dating back then. Maybe she would never have met that bastard. The disappearance of Frauke Liebs. It's an unsolved German case. She was a nursing student. One evening, while she was on her way home, she was abducted. The kidnapper kept her in captivity and allowed her to call her ex-boyfriend. She sounded like she was under the influence of something and disoriented. Then the call stopped. A few months later, her remains were found. To this day, there are no suspects, no DNA traces, nothing. The Setagaya family murder. In 2000 in Japan, someone broke into a house and murdered the entire family living there. After the killings, the murderer stayed inside for several hours, eating their food, using the toilet, which was obvious because he didn't flush, and even leaving behind several personal items. Despite the enormous amount of evidence, almost as if it was deliberately left to taunt the investigators, the killer has never been found. Thanks a lot for watching. Check out our other videos, and have a good night.